Hi guys, so here we have another deck profile that's actually been a very long time coming, and I cannot believe it's taking me so many sets to make this deck profile. We are talking about my one and only girl, Sakuyamon. And when I say I can't believe it's taking me this long, I mean this is a deck where I am actually struggling to figure out which playmat to use, because this is my playmat that I use for webcam games, and this is the playmat that I use for my this is the playmat that I use for my locals, which was a custom playmat gifted to me by a very good friend of mine. Shout out to Maid, and honestly, that's not even like the worst of it, guys. I have not one, not two, and not three sets of Kyubimon sleeves I have to choose from, but four, because I mean we gotta, we can't exclude the OG Tamer's design, right? So as you can see, I very much like this Digimon, and obviously a lot of the decks that I make, I really adore those Digimon as well, but I think Sakuyamon, when I watched Tamer's, was very formative in my opinion of Digimon as a whole, and I think Rika was really cool. So you can just imagine my delight when EX2 had come out and we were able to make a Sakuyamon deck, and now here we are at BT17, and there are too many pieces for me to decide how to build this deck. So the deck list I'm going to show you today is something that I've sort of kind of just settled on for right now. I can promise you it's probably going to change in like a week or two, and it's gonna keep changing because we have so many more new pieces to build with this, but let's just get into what I currently have right now. We are going to start off with our eggs. Look at them, they're so beautiful. These cute little Viximon we're running 4 of. Originally, when this deck first came out, you could run 4 and then maybe an Upamon, which was the one that has the extra draw if you have 3 or less security. This Viximon, though, is just really nice because if you're running any other versions of the Renamons, you don't have to worry about paying 1 for an evolution cost. So the thing about this Viximon is it's really good to get an extra draw off of any of your options that cost 2 or more. So they did make it a little bit balanced. You can't get away with using blinding rays and getting an extra card in your hand, but whenever you use an option with cost 2 or more, you draw 1. This is such a fantastic way to get extra value off of all of your options, and I really love this card. I love this art. She's cool, and fun, sad little story. I actually had a 5th Viximon, and it was a signed Viximon from the producer of Digimon Survive, and it was stolen from me. So, yeah. Anyway, those are our cute little eggs, and then we're gonna go straight into our Renamons, which is gonna be all of our rookies. We are running 4 of, sorry about the glare, we're running a 4 of the EX2 Renamons. We are running 2 of the EX4 Renamons, and we are running a 4 of the BT17 Renamons. As you can tell, there are a couple Renamons missing from this lineup. However, it's because, one, I don't think they offer that much to this deck in terms of the way that you want to handle this, because Sakuyamon actually has a couple different ways that you can go. You can go whole security control, and I really wanted to try to build something a little bit more aggressive, which is why I kind of settled on this build right now. The EX2 Renamons are going to be one of your searchers. You use the on play, you look at the top 4. You get to add something in the Renamon line and a Rika to your hand, and the inherent is whenever you use an option card with cost 2 or more, you gain a memory. So this is just a nice way to get back some of the value for your options, and I really love being able to just search for pieces, right? This deck doesn't have the same sort of power that a lot of other decks will have in terms of being able to spit out just sort of like deletion effects really early on. So any way we get to be able to search stuff and get back that memory from options, it's really nice, and we should take advantage of that. That being said, we are also actually using the 2 of the EX4 Renamon, which has an on-play effect. So this one is going to be the one that when you play this until the end of your turn, 2 of your opponent's Digimon with 4,000 DP or less can't attack. The important thing to know about this Renamon is that when the Renamon tags the 2 Digimon on the on-play, even if they gain more DP, they still cannot attack. This is one of the Renamon lines from EX4 where you evolve into the virus line, so it has the blue in its text. This is the one that evolves into the Viximon for a cost of 0, but over any other rookie for a cost of 1. So you could memory choke your opponent, but really what you want to do is probably evolve into this and then get one of your searchers or one of your new searchers, which is going to be the BT17 Renamons, right? These ones are going to be the on-play, reveal the top 3. You add a Digimon with Kyubi, Taomon, or Sakuyamon in its name, so again, the whole line, and then either a Rika or an option card with an option card with cost 2 or more among them. And the reason I like this one is, one, not only does it help fix your like hand if you're looking for certain pieces, but it also doesn't specify plugins, which a lot of the older Sakuyamon stuff did specify at a certain point. The inherits, just said option cards cost 2 or more, but a lot of the older Sakuyamon stuff does mention plugins, and this one doesn't. So it gives you a little bit of flexibility in terms of what you're going to be running. But my only big issue with this card is that the inherit for this one lends more towards a security control build. What that means is this one says when you use an option cost 2 or more, one of your opponent's Digimon gets a security attack -1. Now, I will admit to the fact that this means if you're playing against things like Lugimon or anything that has Alliance, that they aren't getting as much value off of an Alliance as they originally are, so it's also a nice way to sort of scale back their game-ending turns, right? It saves you a little bit. So, this next set of Digimon, which are going to be our level 4s, I actually struggle with a lot. This is probably the levels that keep changing the most, even across the beginning of EX2. So we are running mostly Kyubimons. We are going to be running a 4 of this BT10 Kyubimon. This is a common card, and I love this card. I cannot believe it's a common. I can't believe that we get a card like this, and I think it is such great value for what it does. It evolves for 2, and then you have an option when you're digivolving. You can either return an option card with plugin, so it does specify plugin, so you do have to return a card that has plugin, or you trash a card with plugin in your hand to draw 2. And having the ability to like selectively just say, hey, I'm going to trash this card and have a way to maybe get it back later and then draw 2. I love drawing cards and I love fixing my hand like this. Like genuinely, when they first printed this card and I first played it, I went, there's no way this is a common. That's so insane to me. So for me, it's basically an auto include as a 4. It's probably the last on the chopping block for my level 4s to be cut down to 3, just because I think the value that it offers in that module 4 is just so important to this deck. Now, even right now when I'm thinking and talking about this, I think that these level 4 Kyubimons, I like their one digivolving effect. I don't know how attached I am to it in comparison to the other Kyubimon we might have like as options for. The one digivolving effect is really nice. I do love the fact that you can play a Rika if you don't already have one in play. It's taken us a while to get there and we finally got one, which is nice. So at least you can, Evo for 2, get your memory tamer on the field after you've played maybe a searcher. I think I might be cutting this one down to either a 2 of or a 3 of, and replacing it either with the Kyubimon from EX4, which lets you give something blocker and has the same inherit, which is a -2k when you use an option card that costs 2 or more. But I will not go back to the original EX2 one. I think the one digivolving effect and searching for an option with plugin is too narrow in scope for this deck. This inherit for this Kyubimon, specifically for BT17, does also have the same as the Renamon in this set, which is -security attack 1 to one of your opponent's Digimon. So again, you're at least able to style out some games and force your opponent to kind of really think about how they want to end the game. If they've got the -security attack 1, they'll have to focus on other ways, because if they have -security attack 1 and you have no security, they still can't hit you for game, which is an important thing to remember. And then the last 2 level 4s that I'm actually going to be running in this are going to be Zephyrmons. These are hybrid cards, not searchable in the deck except by a training boost, and these actually were included in the original iteration of this deck all the way back from EX2. This is a really interesting format where sometimes hybrid for game can just be the card that you actually need. A lot of the times your memory setter Rika, you might not be able to use her for the option card, right? Because there's so many new ways now with like the new Sakuyamon stuff that you're using options for free, that you don't always need Rika. And sometimes when those tamers are just sitting there not doing anything but giving you like that 3 memory at the start of your turn, it feels kind of bad. So I actually like using these, and I think they are probably just a really nice include for right now. I'm testing them at a 2 of, and I've liked how they are so far, because they're also another way to evolve on top of things. And the nice thing about the Zephyrmons is that they can evolve on top of each other or another level 4 to just get an extra dig in terms of drawing, and they'll only Evo for 1 there. So that's why they are in there. Normally I would not run the hybrid in what I consider like a pure Sakuyamon deck, but I think with the way that things have been going so far in formats, I am leaning more towards adding and having hybrids in the deck. that concludes our level 4s. We are now going to our level 5s. So the level 5s have also been taking an interesting turn. I am running a 2 of the 1 Digivolving Taomon from EX2. These are the ones that let you play your Rika for free from your hand, and this one doesn't have a stipulation of if you already have one. So you could literally just evo into the new level 4, play your Rika, evo into this, play another Rika. And I actually am only running these at 2 because of this one, and a huge part of it is also that like it also feels less like you're in a spot where you get hard punished for hard dropping tamers. This is just a really nice way to be like, okay, well, if I get to it and I have the tamers in my hand, then I will go ahead and play it. And you have a couple different ways of searching out those tamers to add to your hand. I like the inherit on this one. When you use an option cost 2 or more, you get you can give one of your opponent's Digimon minus 2k DP for the turn, and you'll see that as a common theme throughout both the EX2 and the EX4 line for this for the inherits. And originally, like with the builds for this, there was a lot of focus on DP deletion. Like I said, I feel like the inherits for the new stuff just sort of conflicts with that, which is why I've been testing all the different versions of this deck. Speaking of the inherits, I am actually running only a 1 of the EX4 Doumon, which is also treated as Taomon. As Taomon. It has the on-play 1 Digivolving, where you return one of your opponent's Digimon with 6,000 DP or less to their owner's hand. And I like this because a lot of things in the format are 6,000 DP, and that hits a lot of potential 5s and lowers. The only reason I cut this down to 1 is you don't have as much DP reduction in this deck as you used to, and the on play will happen less because I actually don't have the Kuzuha top end in this, and I'll get to that later, right? This was a little bit better, and you needed it more of when you were running the full blue line on this, and that means the whole EX4 line. So for right now, this feels at a comfortable spot as a 1 of. We'll see how we feel about that in about a week or 2 after we revisit this deck. And then the last level 5s are going to be a 4 of the new Taomon. This Taomon has barrier, so in case it would be deleted in battle, including security battles, you can trash the top card of your security stack to prevent that deletion. It also has a 1 Digivolving effect that lets you use an option card that has plug in its name or that's yellow with a reduced cost of 2. It is super important to note that this Taomon is different from the other Taomon that has this similar 1 Digivolving effect. This one does have to meet color requirements. The other Taomon specifically says when Digivolving, you can use an option with plug in its name without meeting color requirements. You have to meet the requirements for this Taomon. The reason I put this at a 4 of, besides the fact that it has barrier, is its when its hacking effect is, I think, such a great inherit. If this Digimon has Sakuyamon in its name, you can use an option card that has plug in its name, or that it's yellow from your hand with a cost reduced by 2. I appreciate the cost reduction a lot. I think that it was smart to finally say, hey, we're only reducing it by 2, and you can't get them all for free all the time. But having Sakuyamon in its name is the more important part of this, because that means it doesn't just need to be a Sakuyamon, right? And that matters actually a lot in Digimon, especially when it comes to searching and it comes to evolving certain things. So I like the metaphor for right now. Again, we'll see how things go as the format develops and as this deck sort of fits itself to my needs. Now for the level 6s, we have come such a long way from EX2 because these used to be as a 4 of in the deck. So this Sakuyamon, which is the original EX2 Sakuyamon, is now currently at a 1 of. And it feels weird to say that because it has a 1 Digivolving effect that you unsuspend one of your Digimon, and then for each tamer that you have in play, you return an option card with a plug in its name from your trash to your hand, and then your turn, and this is not once per turn, whenever you use an option card that costs 2 or more, you give one of your opponent's Digimon minus 3k DP. So fun fact about this card. When EX2 first came out and the security thing from Reaper was a thing, I managed to delete up to 30,000 DP worth of Digimon on the field, and it was a great feeling. That Sakuyamon deck put in so much work for this. The reason I cut this down to 1 is, again, there's a lot of ways for you to now get your options back from your trash back into your hand, and there's not as many ways to be able to chain options properly to really get the full effect of this your turn effect. And I think for me, it feels okay as a 1 of for right now. And the biggest reason why is because I like the new Sakuyamon rare. So this also has barrier. So again, if it were to be deleted in battle, then you can just trash the top card of your security stack to prevent that deletion. And so this one lets, let's say, one of your opponent's Digimon, one Digimon gets minus 6,000 DP for the turn, and then you can use an option card from your hand without paying the cost. So that a 5 cost or lower, or that has plug in its name, and it's like it has the same sort of like stipulations as the other things in this line. The other nice thing about this is your turn, once per turn, when you use an option card with a cost 2 or more, until the end of your opponent's turn, none of their effects can return this Digimon to the hand or the deck. This makes your blue matchup so much better, especially against something like, I don't know, Ancient Garurumon, which just bounces stuff back to your hand. It means that you don't have to worry about building a singular stack, which this deck is so likely to do, and then having all of that work be wasted. This deck really is, like I just said, like a very singular feeling deck, right? That means that you're really only probably focusing on 1 or 2 stacks at a time just because of the memory consumption of the deck as a whole. And so for me, having the chance to like negate any sort of bounce back is really, really nice. It does have that stipulation that you use an option card, but hopefully that's not too much of a problem in this deck. And the last 2 Sakuyamon are our Maid modes. So Sakuyamon Maid mode was very fun, and I loved it because you could use Sunrise Buster. So it has the 1 Digivolving effect. You can use an option card with plug in its name, or that's yellow with like 5 costs or less from your hand without meeting its color requirements. Sunrise Buster was red and yellow, and you could use it off of Sakuyamon Maid mode. The other important thing to note about the Sakuyamon Maid mode is after you use that option card, you put it to the top of your security stack, so you can basically double dip in terms of like what your options do. There was a lot of really fun ways to build around Maid mode when it first came out and before we got hit with the Sunrise Buster ban. But when attacking also, you are able to evo into a Sakuyamon for a cost of 1. This is the important part. It has to be a Sakuyamon. It doesn't say Sakuyamon in its name, so it can't be Kuzuha. I also had to learn that the hard way when I was first adding those 2 cards into the deck. So digital translator doesn't work on this, unfortunately, but you can use it on Sakuyamons. So, but it's not Sakuyamon in name. I really like this just because it lets you use pretty high cost options for free, and it lets you get that extra security effect, which is really nice. It feels like a weird version of like having X antibody protoform, but I also think it helps influence the decisions of the options that you're choosing when you're building this deck, because the Maid mode, like I said, can let you basically use them twice, right? And so she's currently just at a 2 because other than that, she doesn't really do much for me afterwards. I think I like the barrier one a little bit better. So ending with all of our Digimon there, we're actually going to go into our Tamers. So here's the really weird split about Rika's. EX2 Rika, which is your memory tamer, and the one that says when attacking, if you're attacking with anything in the Sakuyamon line, you can tap her to use an option card for free. I'm actually only running a card of 2 of. And I think a huge part of that is a lot of the deck now is saying, hey, you can use options and plugins for free. Oh, sorry, Rika actually does specify plugins. My bad. So she does specify plugins, so keep that in mind. And I think a lot of the newer stuff for Sakuyamon in BT17, because it focuses on letting you have cost reductions for options, you are using them a lot faster than when you would have the Rika in your hand. You also have ways to chain it a little bit, right? So you could technically just go for like the new Taomon and then also just stack that with like sort of the Rika thing. But it makes sense when you're looking at the options later, I promise. But I think for right now, when I was testing the couple of games that I managed to get in, this felt like not as great as it used to. And it feels really weird to say that because memory tamers are usually really, really good. But I think it's because, guys, we got a Biomerge Rika, and I'm running this into 4 of. And the biggest reason is, 1, start of your turn, if your opponent has a Digimon, or sorry, start of main phase, if your opponent has a Digimon, you gain a memory. So with these 2 out, you could at minimum just be getting 4 memory, right? I don't know what it is about this Biomerge thing, but I really loved having the chance to just be a slightly more aggressive and then being okay with things getting hit in security. Because the thing about this one is, if you have a Renamon on the field, by tucking in a Kyubimon and a Taomon underneath this, you can evo into a Sakuyamon. So again, because of the way this card is worded, it has to be specifically a Kyubimon and a Taomon. It cannot be like the weird way that like the Youko and the Doumon work in terms of EX form. It has to be a Sakuyamon, or like it has to be from like that line. And then when you do that, you can actually add a plugin back from your hand. So essentially, right, the goal, because they are both in this set, the goal is to biomerge into the Sakuyamon. You bring back an option that you can use for the one Digivolving effect here. So does it happen often? No, but that's the point of this right now. And I think I really enjoy just having it that way. So now we come to the plugins and the options. And again, your mileage may vary on this one, and this is just from what I felt comfortable when I was testing, and this is akin to my playstyle. So to start off with our plugins, we are going with 3 Digivolution plugin S. These are the ones that when you play this, you draw one, and then you are able to Digivolve one of your Digimon into a card that has a Digivolution cost of 3, and you can do it for free. So I really like this card because it gets you extra cards. So even if you don't have a card in your hand that can Digivolve into something on like that's already on your field, you're like, I can at least still get the draw, and if you have the inherits, including the Viximon, you get an extra draw on top of that. I love the security effect. The plugins just add to your hand, by the way, but the security effect for this one is you reveal the top 3 and you add a Digimon card from there. And there's a lot of Digimon in this deck. There's a lot of pieces that you're going to be trying to dig for. Worst case scenario, they hit this in security, you find another searcher, you can play that searcher later on. I used to have this as a 4 of, and with the way that this deck is now working, I felt comfortable enough to cut it down to 3. Moving on to our next plugin, it's going to be a 1 of the high speed plugin. I like this plugin. I think it's funny. I finally read the card for the first time like 6 to 8 months ago, and I was like, oh wait, you can't be blocked. You can't get around redirect, but you can't be blocked, which is pretty neat. Its security effect is also a draw 1 and then you add it to your hand. So it doesn't search, but it adds a card into your hand. And honestly, being able to give something jamming is really nice, because did you know that it's really easy now to delete things at 11k DP or less in security? That is such a wild thing to say, because 11k DP now feels low for a lot of things, and I don't know how I feel about that. But being able to give your Sakuyamon jamming after all the effort you put into getting into the Sakuyamon feels really nice. But with the barrier, the reason why this is at a 1 is because it feels a little redundant, but it's up to you how often you want to trash your barrier. The other 1 of in the deck is going to be the defense plugin. This is a 5 cost option. I used to try my best to play it off for free for the Sakuyamon Maid mode, but now you have a lot of different ways of being able to cheapen the cost for it and maybe play it for free, right? So the nice thing about this one is until the end of your opponent's turn, one of your Digimon gain blocker and reboot. This means you can swing freely with one of these and then not worry about having to barrier, or, you know, maybe they have like some like small bodies on the field and you're able to at least block with it. I love the security effect. So you reveal the top 3 and then you can play a Digimon card's play cost of 4 or less among them without paying its play cost, and then you add this card to your hand after putting those searched cards to the bottom of the deck. Obviously, this doesn't get around things like Pomomon or things that say you play Digimon by effects, but you can still add it to your hand, and it's still a way for you to use it again, which is why I love the combination so much, because you can just put it into your security, add it to your hand, and then make something else a reboot blocker. So then the last 2 plugins, actually, but not the last options, are going to be the pause plugins. These ones were the anniversary box toppers or like the update packs, something like that. And I like this one a lot. It has a sort of Venusmon feeling effect because it's a 1 Digivolving, or like when you use it until the end of your opponent's turn, one other Digimon gets minus 6k, and then their 1 Digivolving skills don't activate, which is nice because a lot of things in this format and a lot of things in general in Digimon rely on their 1 Digivolving. Most of the time you'll probably end up deleting the same body that you're tagging with this, but at least if you don't, because you're just short the memory, you don't have to worry about any sort of 1 Digivolving effects. The security effect is almost the same as the main effect, you just don't get the 1 Digivolving tag for it. It's just minus 6000 DP, but like the other plugins, they'll be added to your hand. So as you can see, there's a couple other plugins that I didn't include in this one, including the red one. I've always found that the red one, which gives you security plus 1, not to be the best for my liking, but that's just a playstyle thing, not a sort of like deck thing, right? For me, I don't value that security check as much as I do like being able to clear my opponent's board. That might change if I want to be way, way, way more aggressive with this deck. I also not a huge fan of the security effect, which is you look at the top 3 and you add a Tamer card in your hand. As of right now, we're only hitting 4, 5, 6 Tamers in the deck, so you have a chance to bottom deck a lot of important pieces. I would rather search for a Digimon piece than I would for a Tamer piece at that point. And then the last 3 cards in this deck are actually going to be physical trainings. Now, when physical trainings first came out, I actually didn't want to put them in this deck. I didn't think that the deck needed them, and I thought that I wanted more plugins. But with the new BT17 stuff, which actually also stipulates that you can use a yellow cost option and the cost reduction, you can use these for free. And anytime you can use an option for free, I will say yes to that any day of the week. This does miss all of the plugins except for Pause plugin, but you're only missing like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards in your deck overall. Trainings in this deck feel so much better than they did before, and being able to use them for free and being able to just have that cost reduction in your evolutions just feels really, really nice. So I did like how I felt about them when I was testing them. Also, if you haven't run into this problem yet, no, you cannot use trainings to reduce the cost of going into a hybrid on top of your Tamer. If anybody tries to do that to you, no, they cannot do that because it specifies one of your Digimon. So if it's happened to you already, I'm very sorry to be the one to tell you this, but you cannot use any of the trainings to reduce a hybrid evolution on top of a Tamer. And it's worded very specifically that way. So honestly, this is what I've come up with after a couple games of testing and how it feels like so far. Like I said, there is a very high chance that this deck changes within the next couple of weeks. I think Sakuyamon is probably the deck I've changed the most out of all of the decks that I've had built. And that's not just because I've had it built since EX2, it's just because like the new and the old things for these decks sometimes don't feel like they mix, and I've been trying my best to make the use out of them. You'll note that I actually have not mentioned the BT5 Sakuyamon. This one also lends itself more towards security control, so if you wanted to go towards that variation there, I would say absolutely you can go for it. It actually fits pretty well with the new stuff, especially if you want to run the Venusmon package. Venusmon and the Sakuyamon are just super great. At that point, you would probably put Healing Therapy or Purge Shine and stuff like that inside of the deck just to give yourself a little bit more like DP reduction, and then minus security effects so your Venusmon is always live. The other one I did not put in, and the one that I took out that actually kind of hurt to take out, was the Kuzuha. I loved this card. Being able to play Kaiser Nails off of this and just spit out a board felt really good. But because of the new stuff and like how much I value the one digivolving effects from the new things in BT17, Kuzuha felt like an easier cut to do just because I'm not playing Kaiser Nails and I'm not running the line for her in complete, or like as a whole like complete thing, right? Because the Renamon, the Doumon, the Taomon all have on-play effects, and if I'm not really running those, then I feel like I'm not really utilizing Kuzuha to the best of her ability. Yes, it can get me a board out, it can spit me out a board, but that requires me using plugins, and again at that point I just rather be using the barrier Sakuyamon. So I could be eating my words in a week or 2 and they might taste delicious, it might taste bitter, who knows, but honestly I really, really am super happy that like this deck just keeps getting support. I clearly love Sakuyamon a lot as a Digimon, and I think she's just I just think her design's so pretty. I also have the Digivice for it. It's sitting somewhere in my room. Another thing to note, I did originally run Shanghai Ruin modes in these. It feels less good now because, again, this is focusing on a single stack. If you're running a Kuzuha variant, my suggestion is absolutely put a Ruin mode in there because you can spit out bodies with your Kuzuhamon, and then you can just do minus 5,000 DP on your opponent's board and still build with like the stuff that you have, right? But on that note too, I am tinkering with the idea of putting the Shanghai Ace in here because 1, it lets you play a Tamer, and then 2, sometimes these two Tamers might not be doing stuff for you, so they might as well give your Shanghai Aces like an extra couple thousand, like a couple security checks, right? So that's how I would get around using or not using the red plugin. But deck space feels pretty tight as it is, so there is just a lot of tinkering to be done. I cannot tell you how happy I am though to just keep experimenting with this deck, as frustrating as it can get sometimes, and I'm looking forward to updating this when Maid mode Ace comes out. That one also feels very security control-y. And I think the most difficult thing for me is, as a player for this deck, I don't want to play security control. I want to play aggressive Sakuyamon. It is a very weird way to play aggressive Sakuyamon because it's in yellow, and yellow doesn't lend itself to aggression as much as the other colors in Digimon do. So I'm trying my best. If you have any other suggestions for me, please feel free to go ahead and do so. Other than that, I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to me ramble about how much I love this deck. And hey, please help me decide. Guys, I have three different sleeve types. 4 really, if you're still counting like these and we oversleeve them again, but like I just have so many sleeves that I don't know which one to choose. I'm indecisive. My egg sleeves though are super great because they're Pokemon World Championship egg sleeves, so I will probably change those for Sakuyamon ones, but I don't know which ones to choose. Please help me. Thank you for listening to me ramble so long about Sakuyamon. I hope you can give the deck out and give it a try, and let me know how you feel about it and what you think needs to change, or maybe what you think, what version you built. I love seeing what other people build all the time, and I think Digimon is a game where everyone's opinion is valid in terms of how they deck build, because at the end of the day, it's really about how you play. Anyway, thanks.